Look up the word crazy in the dictionary, and you might just find an asterisk beside the definition that says, listen to the Subiquitous podcast featuring Sue Duffield, and you'll find out what crazy means. Sue's travelogue journey of unfiltered stories, impossible miracles, and faith-filled fun will be revisited right here. So buckle up, and let's get going with this humorous travelogue of an unfiltered saint, Subiquitous.
You know, it's got to be true because I read it online. How many times have you heard that? Listen, even before my mother and father, God bless their souls, let me say to you that they trusted everyone. They trusted people. That was their culture. And I remember my father when he first got into the internet, as we call it, and started emailing. And what he would do is whenever someone would send him an email, he would forward it, and then they would forward it, and then they would forward it, and then you'd have like about 1,000 people in this email feed, and you'd say to yourself, oh, it's got to be true because all of these other people are saying it. Well, let me tell you a few things that weren't true about the Duffields that I recently read online. No, we did not own a tour bus. And no, Jeff has never led worship conferences around the country without me. It just said Jeff did. And then there was another one more recently. Speaking of Jeff Duffield, he's on this episode with me.
This is an achievement.
This is an achievement.
A momentous occasion. I'm actually back where I started from, doing podcasts with you.
And it's not because we didn't have a guest.
No, it's because you did have a guest.
It's because we did have a guest, and we're waiting for a few weeks to do that.
You mean no? It's not because today.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's not that you're out of guests. Actually, no, there's other reasons. But
I can always tell when you're thinking too literal, too black and white.
Really?
Yeah. Get a little more abstract in your thought.
Isn't that
here.
like 98% of the time?
This is the major fight between us. It's not a fight ever.
No, don't give the impression.
No,
it's a
we don't fight, but we do have discussions about my abstractness and your black and whiteness.
and it exists.
Did you know that you did, when we performed, that you did classical music? Did you know that?
Well, I've done it, but not recently. No,
That's what they said.
I know. I saw the thing, and what they should have said, or what you intended them to say. Correct me if I'm wrong, but classic music like standards.
Yes.
The Great American Songbook.
That's right.
Those we do.
That's right.
Yes. Anyway.
Although, like you say, you can do classical music.
I was trained, and as well as being trained to sit up and beg, I was also trained to classically play the piano. Mr. Bach, Mr. Beethoven, they were acquaintances of mine back in my early years and teenage years.
I know. I remember one time, Jeff, you were pre-warned that a very affluent woman in the state of Delaware was attending a party.
Oh, I wasn't pre-warned. I was ordered.
By Mr. Frederick of Dawson.
Yes, Frederick J. Dawson.
A wealth planner who said to you...
And a very close personal friend who has done many favors for you and I.
I know he has.
And so he said he had...
Tatiana.
Thank you. Copeland,
and her maiden name is?
No, not maiden.
No.
That I don't know, but she's a direct descendant. I believe she was a granddaughter of Sergei Rachmaninoff.
That's right.
The classical composer.
And she married into the family of...
The DuPonts.
That's right.
Yeah, so she's got it going, left to right.
She's got it going all the way.
Yeah, boy, does she.
So when you were asked...
She was going to be at that party,
right.
That soiree, as they say. And Fred somehow found that out and called me. I was on a... No, I don't think I was on a payphone. I was on a cell phone, but I was outside, standing somewhere outside. And he told... I happened to make the mistake of saying that I played... Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor.
When did you tell him that?
Sometime about a month and a half before that party.
So the timing was perfect.
And he picked up on that and knew she was coming and said, you have to I said, Fred, I haven't played that thing in years, and let alone publicly. And he said, doesn't matter. Get practicing.
Because it's got to be true. I read it online that Jeff Duffield does classical music.
Yeah, so I played it. I definitely did.
And you did a great job, by the
Well,
way.
I did okay.
You didn't do bad considering it was only on an electric keyboard.
Right, it was electronic keyboard. It was a digital piano, but still not the same. I actually went online, here we go,
See?
and downloaded the transcription that I used to play.
Right.
The exact same transcription. I guess there isn't. Sometimes they edit these things. They simplify these wonderful pieces of music. Mm-hmm. You can buy Rhapsody in Blue online, and it'll sound like the piano guy on the internet.
And that's got to be true because we read it online.
Yeah, which is not exactly the way. What's his name now? Rhapsody in Blue. Who wrote that? Help me.
Oh, no.
Gershwin.
Gershwin, I'm sorry.
Gershwin. It's not the version you'd find there is not necessarily what Mr. Gershwin.
It's called Gershwin
wrote.
for Dummies.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. But I downloaded the same arrangement, transcription, whatever.
And it worked.
That I played as a child. Mr. Frecky, my piano teacher.
Yeah.
Taught me to play, and it was the original deal, and that's what I worked from, and I did, knowing Mr. Fred, and knowing that he had ordered me to do it and to be ready. I practiced for like a month on that, almost. I think it was every day. I think I did.
I'm proud
at
of
home.
you. I'm so proud of you.
I was ready.
You know, I got to tell you, though, and they need to know this. Very few times I see Jeff Duffield nervous. You were nervous that day.
Absolutely.
There were only like 30 people in the room, but you were nervous.
If I play that publicly again, it will be the second time I've played it publicly in my life. I've never had I'll take that back. The day before that, I played it publicly in one of our concerts right around that time.
Oh,
period.
that's right, to practice.
A warm up, yeah, to get rid of the
Right.
nerves of playing in front of an audience. So I've
Yes.
played that song publicly twice in my life. It was a learning piece,
And that's why I say your reputation precedes you, because I've heard,
Yes.
it's got to be true, I read it online, that you know how to play everything.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that's kind of the gist of this episode. I want to also talk about what we've read online that actually are very impactful, how God has used us over the years to influence people. And
there are things that are true.
There are things that are true.
There are some things that are true.
That's right.
And what you have to share, from
Yeah.
what I understand, is some of the truthful things.
Well, we were overwhelmed about a year and a half ago when a woman from Atlanta saw us online, was also found Jesus at a Sammy Hall crusade.
Right.
When you and I were just 17, 18 years old. And she reminded me how she found me was through the YouTube site where I sang for Sammy Hall's funeral.
Right.
And so she Googled me and then found us singing on a Thursday night Couch to Kitchen episode.
Right.
And she said, somehow, some way, can you believe out of all of the episodes that we did, the very first one that she tunes into is the one that we sang 10,000 Years. And that was the song.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that was the song that I sang, most recognizable song for me at the time.
As a lot of musicians say, it was your sugar stick.
It was, and it was a great song.
I'm just repeating what they say.
I know. Well, you have all this lingo stuff, and it's got to be true because you read it online.
No, it's got to be true because I've heard them use it. That has nothing to do with online.
But we both were like looking at each other, just in tears. You and I saying how we don't realize how much of a reach we have.
Yeah, you may have just said it. I was doing something here. Did you say that you prayed with her at that crusade?
Yeah, we did. We prayed together, and she says, and I don't recall it, she says that when I prayed with her, I asked her if she knew the Lord, and she said no.
Right.
And I'd like to ask him into my heart.
Right.
So,
the scriptures say when we get to eternity,
correct,
that we're going to find out things that we and influences that we've had on people that we had no idea.
No.
no clue that it was going to be there. I don't know if there's an actual scripture verse for that, but I've heard a lot of preachers say it, so that must make it true.
It's got to be true.
But we're going to find out people that we've had an influence for God and for living a better life and making changes in their lives that we had no idea that we influenced. But thankfully, God in his mercy and kindness to you and I have allowed us to find a few of these people.
Well, these are little
in life.
Yeah, and it's happening more, and it just stuns me.
It just happened the other day.
It stuns me.
Yeah.
I mean, it literally stops me in my tracks.
It's very humbling.
Oh, and sometimes it has nothing to do with music.
Right.
Most times it does.
Right.
But a lot of times it doesn't, and it has everything to do with your demeanor, your attitude, your character, and the way that you carry yourself as a believer. And here we are, just wet behind our ears in ministry when we're 17 years old.
Quite. Well, here's my literal kicking in. We were older than 17, but I won't.
Okay, so we were what, 18? Almost 19?
And a half. 18
okay.
Well, I'd hate to hang by my thumbs.
Well, that's true.
That time.
That's true, but we were still very young.
I'm being literal. Yes. The point is we were extremely young.
And then another thing happened to you just a few days ago.
Yep.
A young man contacted you from Xenia, Ohio.
Commented, well, I posted a picture, came up in the memories section of Facebook, and I posted a picture from our days with Sammy Hall, with a picture of the band. And he commented that he was in a crusade in Xenia, Ohio, in the school that we played there. And it was remarkable that we played that school, did 3 nights there with this crusade, and the next week, a tornado came through there and leveled that high school. There was nothing left. I saw pictures of it in a national magazine the next week. There was nothing left of that school. Anyhow, he was there, committed his life to Christ during that crusade, and has gone on to do a lot of different things in Christian world, in media productions and whatever. And he said to me, because I asked him, I said, were you there at that and such and such? And yes, I was. And I said, he said back to me that that moment was a pivotal point in his life, his entire life. And that's 47, 48 years ago now. Yeah.
Well, how many times have I said from a platform? And I mean this when I say it, but then when we actually experience it through someone else's life, when I say to somebody, you know, this event, this time together, you might look back in 15, 25, 50 years from now, and this will be a pivotal point in your life.
We never know.
And I've said that for years and never realized just how much that is the truth.
Yep, absolutely.
And so in this process of this episode number 110, by the way, thank you for all of you who have just gone along with this journey. We have had more fun and more, we've learned a lot about ourselves. We've learned a lot about our listeners. We've learned a lot about the guests that we have. And the theme, it's got to be true, I read it online, happened to Jeff Duffield just a week or so ago when you just Googled your Uncle Walter's name. I
was sitting here on a Sunday evening watching a movie for the 4th time, I think, some crazy movie. You were... Was it
A League of Their Own?
No.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Can't even tell you what movie it was. I really wasn't
Cannonball Run?
It. No.
Blazing Saddles?
No, the movie, whatever. I wasn't watching it. It was on.
Okay.
I was searching the internets, as we say. Just idly, more than anything else, with my iPad, and for some reason, got thinking about my uncle who passed away, as you know, and many others may be aware of, passed away this past December. Thought about that and started Googling information about the Owens, Illinois glass company to which he worked for many years.
Right.
And my grandfather, his father, also worked for them. And I put in there Owens, Illinois factory, Bridgeton, New Jersey, which was there for many years and is now long since gone. They've leveled the place. Anyhow, I put that in the search, and the first thing that came up was a NewJersey.com article from 11 years ago where they interviewed my uncle.
That's crazy.
Yeah, Owens, Illinois, Bridgeton, New Jersey. Walt Harris remembers, and it stunned me.
Right, because let's face it.
Well, we're talking about an uncle here who did not own a cell phone.
No.
Never in his life.
No, not even a computer.
No,
nothing.
No computer. He didn't even have an answering machine his entire lifetime. You either got Walt to pick up the phone or you got a ring for 5 minutes. You did. He had no voicemail, none of that. No, it can't be bothered setting up that. No. You either got him to pick up the phone or it just rang. And here he is online 11 years later, an article about his life.
That's crazy because, like you say, he wasn't a world traveler either.
No.
And the thing is, I don't know how in conversation, and there have been times where you get Walter on the phone with you, you'd go 2 hours.
Oh, easy.
And maybe you would say 5 words.
Easily.
So how did he not tell you this story? That blows my mind.
He told me a lot of stories, and a couple of them that were in the article I've heard before from him and my mother. But there was a lot of information in there that, it was a different subject. It was about Owens, Illinois.
It wasn't about baseball.
Well, no, it was about baseball.
No, but I'm saying when you're talking to him, that didn't make the frame of reference.
Right.
The article.
Right.
Okay.
But the Owens factory had baseball teams.
Sure.
Had their own field, as a
Right.
matter of fact, back in the day. And so there was a lot in there about baseball, which led to him, that led in the article to him also being an umpire in the South Jersey area. He umpired a lot of games. And met Ted Williams, Pete Rose, among others.
Crazy.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to meet those guys because of his umpiring work later on after he stopped playing. But and the fact, I cannot remember what it is now, but basically my grandfather, who had been crippled by polio as a child, when he had polio, and this was really a long time before they got any of the treatments that they came up with. They put him in the Children's Hospital in Philadelphia, and according to my uncle, basically left him there to die.
And you didn't know that before?
I never was told that. No, and he survived.
Right.
Not only survived, worked at his uncle's farm, and went from there and worked in the glass factory. He probably worked 40-some years in a glass factory, which I've never been in one, but all those who've done it tell me it is not an easy job.
No.
And one of the jobs that he was an expert at was taking thin wire, and wrapping it so that it would hold a cap on top of and seal a bottle that they had. And there was nobody else in the factory did it as well as my grandfather. And we lived in one half of the house, and my grandparents lived in the other half of the house, right up the street from the plant. It was right there in front of us. And my uncle told us in this story about how they'd get orders in at 3 a.m. because the plant ran 24/7.
Right.
And nobody was there to connect to put these bottles together. They would go and walk up to my grandparents' house and scratch on the wall of the house until they could wake him up and call him in at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning to make extra money, putting this wire together to put these caps together on bottles, because he was considered the expert at this thing.
Well, I was thinking about his work ethic, even being disabled.
Yeah. Oh.
He had so much to prove to the world, and he also...
And he did, yeah.
Here's the thing, later he married, right? And he married someone way younger than he, correct?
18 years. That was a bit of a
scandal.
In the early 20s, that was a bit of a scandal.
But all of that, and I know you're not finished, I want to hear more, but
no, it's okay.
Just taking a break here just for a second, thinking about that for a second, that none of this would have happened if he didn't have the work ethic.
Right.
To be able to work through his diverse ability.
Right.
And be able to show the world that, God had a special gift. And just putting wire around a bottle doesn't sound like a lot. But obviously at 3 o'clock in the morning for them to scratch on his window saying, "Come on, Wilbur, get to work."
He was the only guy that really was good at it, according to what I understand.
Oh, that's a great story. Oh,
yeah.
That's a story out of something you'd see like a Field of Dreams.
Yeah. And
what a great movie script.
Yeah, absolutely. And the plant manager. Now, this is a factory that when my grandfather and uncle worked there, we're talking about a factory that employed 4,000 to 5,000 people. This was not a 100 employee operation. It's a huge operation there in the city. When they closed it down, it affected the economy of the city to this day. It's still not recovered from it.
No, it hasn't.
So out of all of that, the comment was made repeated to me by my mother as a kid growing up, and I even read it, that the plant manager said that when my grandfather retired, that he was someone who outworked most of the men who had normal limbs and did not have a diverse ability as such as he. He had for lack of a better word, I don't know what you describe it, he had a hump on his back from the disfigurement, and his right foot was twisted inward. And he walked hunched over. I never knew him that he did not walk hunched over his entire life because he contracted polio as a child. And with those kind of obstacles, still outworked normal-bodied men in the factory, and the plant manager made that statement. So quite a testament.
It is. And so how did you feel when you read that? I mean, whenever I found news
I got to get to work.
Yeah.
I'm lazy.
You are lazy,
compared
you
to my
bum.
grandfather, I'm lazy.
Listen, I'm going to get you some wire at Hobby Lobby. But no, when you were telling me that story, the first thing that came to my mind was, these are stories that need to be told. And we had Dave Clark on this podcast several episodes ago talking about the power of a great story, and that he's telling stories today through his music, but at the same time he's telling stories. He doesn't care if the world knows about it. You know who he's telling it to?
His kids.
He's telling it for his kids.
Right.
And I thought, wow, Walter never had children. But he's got nephews and nieces and grandnephews and grandnieces and great-grandnephews.
Yep, he does now.
And our great-grandnephews, I should say, are our grandsons.
Yep.
They're going to know these stories.
Right.
Because we're going to tell them.
Right. Yep.
And that's what's so cool. And it's got to be true, Jeff, because you read it online. Isn't it true?
Well, I sent an email to the individual who wrote the article, and I've not received a reply yet. So I'm assuming, again, it was 11 years ago.
Yeah,
I'm assuming she's moved
not
on.
Even, right.
Yeah, she may not work there anymore.
Right.
More than likely not.
Oh, wow.
But
That's
nonetheless, it was newjersey.com. Anyone
Okay.
can go look it up, and you can go through their archives and put Owens, Illinois, glass company, Bridgeton, New Jersey, plant, and it'll pop right up.
Yeah.
It won't be hard to find.
And he knew God. He loved his family.
Yeah.
I really want to tag the Kendrick brothers in this story because the Kendrick brothers are producers of great Christian movies, and they're always looking for great stories. And I thought, I'm going to send a whole episode to the Kendrick brothers and say, you need to do a story. If you did one on Molly Bruno with War Room, you need to do one on Wilbur Harris.
Yeah. Yeah.
The wire connector of bottles from Owens, Illinois and Bridgeton, New Jersey, who loved Jesus, who had a grandson who grew to be a great classical pianist.
So great that he's played Rachmaninoff publicly twice. That's how great he is.
Oh, well.
Oh, dear.
All right. Well, Jeffrey, we're gonna conclude this thing. Anything else you want to say?
I'm sure I've messed it up well enough so far.
No, I think it's a wonderful story, and it hits home with me.
Yeah.
Because knowing your mom and your Uncle Walter, the two of them, they were like night and day. They were like oil and water.
Oh, my, yes.
They were nothing alike, did not even look alike.
No, they didn't.
Your uncle was fair-skinned and blonde hair, pretty, and your mother was dark he black hair.
He wasn't pretty.
I think he was a pretty boy.
Well, yeah.
Look at some of those
but
earlier
he
pictures.
did. Well, his hair turned darker as he got older, of course. But yeah, he was blonde when he was born.
I know.
Yeah, and
you're his legacy that's left.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm it.
And your sister.
Yeah.
So it's just
we're
interesting.
it. Yeah, it is.
It's a great story, and I'm so grateful that you did do some research. Tells you what you can learn. It's got to be true, right?
On the internet, whether it's true or not.
Well, it reminds me of that one phrase one of your guitar players says every time you get together in sessions, music's hard.
Oh, it is.
Well, knowledge is hard, too. And I'll let you can do whatever you want. I'll take a drink or go out for some iced tea or something.
Well, I'm not going to do that because otherwise nobody'd be running the computer as we speak.
Well, and I want to tell them in closing that this morning I was drinking my lemon water.
Congratulations.
Yes, and I read online that it's very good for you, and I've started
it must be.
That's right. So I started reading all kinds of neat new tricks for every ailment and flaw under the sun. And you
I'll bet you've got some.
Oh, it's amazing. And as the last shot of lemon water sent a sour shiver down my spine, I reached for my Coke Zero and then started my routine of quenching my thirst.
At least you weren't drinking sugar.
For knowledge.
Yeah.
Oh, well. But anyway, my family knows, and my listener family here on this podcast, that you know that I research everything before I post anything. And if I recommend something, or if I'm just talking about it or discussing something, I really do some research. And I got to tell you, every once in a while, I say to myself, well, it's got to be true. I read it online. And so for the good of all humanity, I will try just about anything within reason. I know it. I'm a sucker for clickbait. Oh, the shame I feel for admitting this. I know better. I really do. And as hard as I try, I really can't help myself. I've been drinking in and soaking up information like a madwoman sometimes. By the way, this morning I took an online quiz which assures me that I am 99.7% mentally healthy. And if that doesn't give merit to my post, I don't know what will. So there's a 0.3% of me that's wacko. I don't know. But I just can't help myself. I know this. I kind of tempt fate each time I click an article stating 4 hacks that are going to bless you and blast you and blah, 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 blah. And seriously, if I see a hack in another headline, I will absolutely yak with the hack. It's the truth. And yet I rationalize my behavior. What if I don't read this gem? And I might miss a kernel of knowledge that leads me to the fountain of youth or a great place to visit or something that's going to make me healthy and wealthy and wise or a new exercise treatment or a new vitamin, whatever. But anyway, the other day I found a video that shared the secret to having better, healthier nails. There's Sue Duffield. Click. Yep, I got sucked into watching this one. Why? Quite simply, it's because I can't spend the day wondering what I missed. So for about a minute, I listened to this pre-nail snail-mercial. You know what I'm talking about. I thought it was only a minute, but I was into it like about 14 minutes and went, this is ridiculous. But after about 15 minutes of watching this waste of time, I realized I was already doing all they were suggesting and trying to sell me. Everything I was doing. I know there are more problems in the world today, besides pretty nails and a healthy manicure, but everything is a learning experience. And when you devote yourself to Google experiments, you're going to be that experiment, and you're going to be in the analytics of all these people around the world that said, uh-oh, that woman in Murfreesboro, Tennessee clicked, so she must like us. And then all you get in your phone are all of these unsolicited emails, unsolicited pop-ups that all of a sudden puts you into that framework and into that rhythm. Well, I'll tell you something. The strength of your influence is directly proportional to the depth of your understanding of how does God see you. How does God see you is to be your identity, your worth, and the place from which you live and where you live out your roles and your responsibilities and use your resources. So instead of how do I see myself every day online, how does God see me online? Everybody has an influence. We all influence somebody. Jeff and Sue Duffield are much more aware of what our roles are, even more so online than ever before, involving ourselves with not only our personal podcast, but our Thursday night Couch to Kitchen events that we do on YouTube, as well as Facebook Live and Twitter. And then they are shared, and then they are shared, and then they're shared maybe even hundreds of times. We're also aware that we're very involved in other productions of podcasting, other nonprofits that we're helping. Jeff also produces and does a lot of work with a lot of musicians around the world, people in Spain, people in Texas, people in Michigan that call him and say, I need a soundtrack. We're very aware, extremely aware of our influence online. And when the pandemic hit, everything changed, and we realized that the most important thing that we could do, not only to have an income and not only to keep ourselves with bread on the table, but to expand our reach, as they say, to really minister our lives as people, not just as musicians, but to be an influence as a character-building person in the lives of other people. Everybody has influence. We all influence someone, and God expects us to be good stewards of that influence for His kingdom's sake. He didn't give us our influence for selfish purposes, but so that we might share the good news about Him and usher in His life, His presence and power into this world through us. In other words, to be a kingdom builder to a world that says, well, it's got to be true. I read it online. It's another thought. Jeff posted something several years ago, or someone posted something about him or said something negative. And you know what happened? He had a friend in New Jersey that took offense to that and actually said in the comment section, I know Jeff Duffield, and I know Jeff Duffield would never do that. Why? Because it's got to be true. I read it online, according to that other person. But someone who knew Jeff Duffield personally said, nope, that's not true at all. So what is the influence in you today? You know, it might not be a bad idea to Google your own name sometimes, just to see. But Christ in you, the hope of glory, His life, His presence, His glory, His power, everything that He is in you, according to Colossians 1:27. And trust me, this is what I believe to be true. It's got to be true because I read it in the Scripture. That's what we really need to call this podcast. You know, as priests, you minister to God for yourself and for your people. And as kings, you rule on the earth on behalf of God. We are kingdom builders. That might be a new subtitle to everything I do when somebody says, can I have your bio? You know, I know you sing and I know, you do podcasts and you speak and you write music and you do all. I really want to be known as a kingdom builder, someone who effectively lives out both of these roles, all of them, and reigns and brings in the kingdom of God through his or her life wherever they are, whatever they do. Let's become a kingdom builder. And when somebody says online, I heard that Sue Duffield is a kingdom builder, you know what you're going to say? Yep, it's got to be true. I read it online. Thanks for tuning into the Subiquitous Podcast. As always, let me just say from the top, we are just so grateful for your love and for your commitment, and just the fact that you check that little box that says subscribe. Pass on this episode to someone you know right now who has said, you know what? I read it. It's got to be true. I read it online. They might need to know the importance of being a kingdom builder. By far, we thank you every single day. Get on SueDuffield.com, and we promise we'll see you next week.